Tell us about the recent case involving the News Observer and some other newspapers trying to get access to the Raleigh-Durham airport in terms of newspaper rights.
So in a case that required something on the order of 8 years to fully litigate, to vindicate some pretty fundamental First Amendment rights, a group of publishers, media interests, led by the News and Observer here in Raleigh, the New York Times, Gannett, which publishes the USA Today, and also the Paxton Papers, which publishes another has another media outlet in the area, came together to challenge a ban on the distribution of news at the Raleigh-Durham airport, and in particular a ban on the distribution of news through newsracks.
And they were saying they had to be sold through the stores?
Their own vendors had, exclusive rights to distribute news,
okay,
notwithstanding the fact that those newsstands weren't open when a lot of people wanted to buy newspapers.
And also other airports have also allowed news racks.
Countless other airports across the country have news racks, and it's never been a problem. I mean, newsstands and news racks have coexisted and done so well from Atlanta to Chicago and all points in between for a long time. And so the idea that this airport at Raleigh-Durham would ban news racks was a fundamental violation of the First Amendment. And U.S. District Judge Terry Boyle in Raleigh found that it was. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, when it first considered the case, by a 3-judge panel, found that it was a violation of the First Amendment, and the airport forced an en-banc, a rare proceeding, a consideration of the case by the full court in Richmond, and an opinion came out of those proceedings that was a tour de force for the First Amendment and a vindication of the right to distribute news freely, overturning the ban and allowing racks to be placed at the airport and allowing passengers and other people to buy news racks, to buy newspapers and to consume news when they want to.
And I've got to ask you, because I was amazed by the figure. The airport spent something like close to $1 million to litigate this, when they could have just put in some newspaper racks or something.
They could have done a lot of things. They could have done a test to see how this would have played out, and they would have found that, like at the other airports you mentioned, that this sort of coexistence between newsstands and news racks works well. And they could have done it, at no expense instead of at an enormous expense to the public. So yes, it's hard to imagine that a public interest would spend that kind of money, those kind of tax dollars.
Especially when they end up losing anyway.
Fighting the First Amendment.
Yeah, exactly. So now there are newspaper racks there.
So now there, I'm glad to say, as of last October, racks on every concourse, and I think the principle here is, whether you're going to consume your news through newspapers in print, or whether someday there'll be a tablet out there, where Best Buy has its vending machines, and you'll consume news in a different way. The fact is that the public's right to consume news is sacred and needs to be protected against unreasonable and arbitrary bans like the one we faced here.
In whatever form they want, pretty much.
That's right, and at whatever time of day they want you to be able to consume news. Mind you, they've got an exclusive contract to put CNN on a monitor at every gate out there. So it all kind of comes back to, are we going to let the government tell you who's going to deliver your news and when, or are we going to let that to be done freely?
Right.
And through this decision, we've got the freedom again.
Some freedom of choice in terms of news. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.